Hello, welcome to this week's episode of Hired. I am your host, Mike, and we bring you an episode every week where we explore something to do in the labor market, the hiring process, the recruitment process. And today's episode, super excited, is all about curiosity. What does that mean? Why is it so sought out? And why is it sometimes an overused buzzword to describe the talent you're looking for? So, my guest this week, super excited to bring her out, Kim Jackson, has a very interesting background and spans everything from customer success to technology to now in her current capacity as director of data analytics at First Advantage. And we'll get into that when we bring her out. But more than what she's done career wise, I want to kind of introduce you to who Kim is as a professional, as an individual. Our research department here at Hired has got big budget. So I was able to scour the internet and put the glasses on for this. And I'm going to read to you some words that Kim's peers have described what it is like to work with her and what she's like as a professional. So, constantly surprising with her creativity, ability to execute, and extremely positive attitude. Pretty great. We're going to go through these. Quick to learn, quick to produce, quick to respond. Has the combination, this is one of my favorites, has the combination of energy, curiosity, dependability, and responsiveness. And finally, my favorite, has a sense of humor and laughter that cuts through all stress. Ladies and gentlemen, because you're not here to hear me talk, I would like to introduce you to Kim Jackson. Kim, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike. Thank you. Those are great. Yeah. I didn't realize you were going to pull those out, but that's awesome.
Well, we have big budgets here at
Yeah.
Hired and Spark TV, so we're really kind of scouring the internet to find out what we know about guests before they come on. So thanks for being here. I found out something interesting before we jump into this, that you have two sisters that have a podcast about marketing, and they've been doing it. How long have they had their podcast for?
They've had the podcast for a few years. I'm not quite sure how many years. They've been in business for close to 10, I think, and started the podcast, the past few years.
So they've had it for a couple of years, which probably, give or take, are they at 100 episodes, around 100 episodes that they might have done?
Oh, maybe. I'm not sure, but I'd have to find out.
And can you confirm that this is your first podcast you've ever done?
Yes, it is. This is my first. I did a webcast years ago for something at work, but this is my first podcast. Now, my sisters, they did keep it in the family though. They brought my daughter on to they do digital marketing, so they brought her on to talk about Gen Z with respect to social media and everything and how that impacts marketing. So now the pressure is on. I'll be on a future episode. I can feel it.
I hope so. If not, this is a call to them to say, I don't even know if it's better or worse if they had your daughter on and not you as appearing on the episode. But that's beside the point. We're here to talk about curiosity, specifically as it relates to a valuable skill set within the data and analytics space.
Mm-hmm.
And your background has been so unique and so interesting to get to where you've been. What I want to do to kick off this discussion is, can we define what it means to be curious within data and analytics, and why you think that this skill set is near the top of your list when you're assessing kind of talent for your team? Maybe give you the big screen here.
Yeah. So when I think of curiosity, I mean, it can apply to any role, any industry, across the board. And to me, it's more than a personality trait. Some may think of it that way, but there's skill to it. You have to be able to see a big picture, a whole system, as well as get into the details and know which questions and things where to push. And being able to do that actually drives, you challenge the status quo, it's discovery, and when you're thinking about data analytics, people are using data to make decisions, and they can be small decisions. What are we going to do with this today? Or it's a big decision. What are we going to select for our next product? Can we make this amount of money? Can we drive this change, cost savings, time? You want people who really will get into the data and question it. You think about people toss out, well, we've got technology. It's technology. We're doing ML and AI and la 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 and all this, buzzword. Guess what? Behind every piece is a person. And do you want a person who is going to dig in and really press and probe and get to the right thing, or someone who's just like, okay, well, this is what you said you wanted. Let's go. I did it. Um, and that to me is why it's so important. I was working with someone not too long ago on a research project, and we started looking at things and we said, well, you're not using the right denominator. You're not even, you said you were doing this, but this is not the number you're showing. Did anyone ask? You need those people to really question, and it kind of goes in with quality. Curious people, they want to discover and change and drive transformation. You might improve something, you might create something new, or you might stop doing something altogether. But you got to have people to question those things so that you're not just on that wheel spinning over and over. So that's why I think it's really important to get the right people in questioning the data.
And I love that piece on innovation, disruption
Hmm.
around kind of curiosity. Have you found that the culture of the team needs to embrace that? Because I can imagine it can be sometimes combative if you have a lot of questioning and some pushback from individuals if their work is constantly being questioned. So how do you create that
Yeah.
culture and that openness to it be curious and kind of innovative?
Hmm.
Because I can imagine that's kind of a challenge as well.
It is, yeah. So you hit on a couple things. One, there is often a pressure to deliver. So, you don't, a lot of times you don't have, white space throughout, say, a life cycle to do it. Where you really got to build it in is the upfront sort of due diligence piece. So when you're starting out with a new project or new, model that you're going to create, data model, up front, you need to build in and bring those curious people in up front so you can really lay out as much as possible. And then probably everyone has run into a tester at some point in their life. Testers, my God, they're curious because they want to know, can I break it? What if I do this? What if I do that? So you're going to have a really big upfront, like because you're right, you can go down so many rabbit holes. And and all the time with some of my developers, I'm like, sorry, I'm going down a rabbit hole. Let's come back up and get what you want done. But that's why it's so important to do the upfront work and then that testing work where you're really doing the quality. We built it, but did it do what we said or what we thought? So there's really those two pieces. I mean, throughout you're going to iterate, but you don't want to disrupt the delivery process. So you really, the front and the back are going to be two places heavy with questioning and curiosity and that kind of thing. Yeah.
And I'm hearing a lot of different background and experience of yours kind of coming in here. You're talking about
Mm.
testing, you're talking about engineering, you're talking about the customer in terms of what they want. Where does your curiosity come from? Because your background kind of encompasses all of these things that
Mhm.
you're bringing to this problem. So, have you thought about yourself and your career and kind of looking at where does your curiosity come from?
Yeah. I Since I can remember, I'm very competitive. Not so much that I'm trying to outpace someone else, but always outpace myself, Okay, well, I did this. I bet I can do it better next time. I get bored as well. And, I had a manager before said, well, Kim will get bored. You're going to need side projects. She needs because it's a change thing. I like to change and create and grow and all of that. So, I can remember taking a radio apart and my screwdriver got magnetized. I'm like, what? So so I'm always trying to figure things out or, what's inside this thing. And then I messed up, I'm like, oh, did I break the screwdriver? So I just always kind of dug in and wanted to figure things out. I like to figure things out and be prepared. And my sisters joke that before, well, she'll project manage Christmas. Well, I just like to make sure, are we covered in this scenario? Do we know what happens when? Um, so I just kind of always want to be prepared. I had a washing station at my daughter's fourth birthday party because we had a petting zoo, and I thought people aren't going to walk around. They want to wash their hands. I got water, I got soap. We're outside at a picnic area, but I had to be curious and figure out what are people going to want to do? How do I cover it? So, yeah, I just always innately want to be prepared and grow and change.
Do you credit your background in customer success just being so conscious of, I guess, what other people are going to want and need, and try to get ahead of that? Like, do you think that that background has created this? Because I think this is extremely valuable in
Hmm.
any department
Yeah.
that you're working in, especially within data analytics, to understand and be the voice of the customer. They call it, but really
Hmm.
kind of understand and be proactive to what they might need. Do you think
Yeah.
that background helped shape how you view and how you go about even doing the
Yeah.
the the, the hand washing station at the birthday
Yeah.
party?
Yeah, and it's I did some earlier in my career reporting and direct customer delivery, and then later in customer success. So I think both of those stints, you're directly interacting with the person consuming. So and then you turn around and then you start doing data and analytics. And one thing also you discover is people think they know what they want and they think they may know the data, but they don't. So you kind of have to take that approach and that role to say, okay, but what's the problem you're trying to solve? You said you want this. I don't know if that's really going to give you what you want. What are you trying to get at? And that's where curiosity comes in as well from a product perspective, customer success, digging into what are they really trying to get at? Do you want to know how long it took? Great. But do you want to know why? Or do you want to know things that are within your control that you can do to impact that? Or you just want the one number? So, really looking at it from the customer or user's perspective, for sure, that's something I try to do. I'm not always perfect. I'll get too, geeky and give like this whole shebang, and they're like, oh my goodness, it's too much. But it definitely trying to see it from their perspective and to help them get what they need out of it for sure.
I love how you summarize that back to the data space about the reason why it exists is to make decisions. We're leveraging
Hmm.
data to make decisions. So at the core of all of these projects, what are we trying to solve? Not the
Right.
symptom, but the root problem. Time
Hmm.
might be the immediate thing you're looking to, but why is that important? What is the bigger
Hmm.
picture to tying that together? And that's where
Right.
your curiosity comes and is extremely valuable in the data and analytics space, because
Hmm.
it is used to make better decisions, which ultimately should impact the customer. It
Yes.
always comes
Yeah.
back to that, right? So
Right.
um, now we talk about your curiosity, where it's come from, why it's
Hmm.
valuable. If we all agree, which I think we will, yes, this is a valuable skill set. How do you attract curious candidates in the data space?
Yeah.
Because that's got to be a challenging thing if it's so sought after.
Yeah. I think there's company level. There are things that we can do as organizations. One, you've got the job description. A lot of times they're bland, they have to be standardized, whatever. We all know that. But wherever you can partner with, say, your HR rep, can you build something in? Maybe the responsibilities are like set, but look under knowledge, skills, and abilities. Can you put something in there about someone, specific about curiosity and what that means to you and your organization? That you're creative thinking, you're innovative, you challenge the status quo, whatever it is, so you can do your job description. Companies, I think, need to look at their website, or their social media, wherever they're presenting themselves. Do you have a mission or vision or values that represent things that entice someone who's curious? Do you talk about growth, about being bold, about change, transformation? And also, what about benefits? Curious people are lifelong learners. Do you give tuition reimbursement? Do you have, and a lot of times companies won't necessarily call it out, but what about a learning management system? Do you have opportunities for them to learn different coding skills, to take a soft skills course? What do you do as an organization to promote the growth that you talk about? So definitely, highlighting any benefits in that space help as well. Um, and then, of course, your leadership. So, what the leadership from the company looks like, what they've done, how they present themselves, as well as once you find out who the hiring manager is, what does your presence look like? Do you show engagement? And I know not everyone can be engaged on social all the time, but are you out there being engaged? Because curious people like to be engaged, like to figure out what's going on. What does yours look like? And like, do you have folks that you have recommended or that have recommended you? What kind of, how's your collaboration, all of that. So I think that, from the company as a whole, the job description, and then the people themselves are ways that you can sort of attract talent in, for
I
those particular areas.
I like what you said there, and I feel like for those of you watching, I didn't prep Kim to essentially sell Spark in our system, but like it was very on point there. I mean, it's one thing to tout, as an organization, the employer brand, if you will, in terms of
Hmm.
what you stand for, growth, things, but the individual leader and what that means and how they reflect those,
Hmm.
right? Like, what does growth look like in your team, and how is
Hmm.
that reflected? So that's naturally curious people are going to ask those questions. It's
Yeah.
great that the organization says, what does that mean, right? And that's what you would want, because the irony is those are the types of individuals you want, is to ask those questions and explore and dig deeper. So you have to satisfy that curiosity by giving them real, authentic data points or stories to
Hmm.
essentially make the case and make the story. So I love what you were saying there about starting at the organization, but really bringing it down to the individual
Yeah.
leaders and how they reflect those and show up. Because I think that's extremely important.
Hmm.
So, okay, we found, we've attracted them, they're on the hook, you're meeting with them.
Hmm.
How do you assess curiosity? Because it's such a difficult thing. Are you curious? I am curious. Great. Like, how do you actually assess the level of curiosity in an interview or a
Right.
conversation to see if it's the right fit for what you're
Hmm.
looking for?
Yeah. So the person themselves, some extrovert, some introvert, but you want to look at the engagement. Just, start with, are they engaged? Do they answer your questions thoughtfully? Do they ask you maybe questions back? Is it conversational? Or, do they just kind of, I answered your question. Next. I answered your question. Next. How does that dynamic flow? That's one thing to see, collaboration, engagement. That's all around curiosity. But also, one of the other things too is at the end, do they ask questions? But one of the things that I've started adding new questions to my set, but there's different things you can ask about problem solving, about, if you were bored at your job, what would you do? Or what are things that you've done to show improvement in a job or a process? Did you ever find something that you took to your manager to make a change? What happened? What are you passionate about? What are you not passionate about? What do you like to do day to day? So like, for example, I am one of those people, and a lot of curious people, we get bored easily. We do not like routine things, doing the same thing every day. If you find a person who likes to do the same thing every day and doesn't like gray space and ambiguity, they are not going to be your go-to curious person, because they don't, curious people are like, oh yeah, oh well, let's figure it out. It's not black and white. There's gray all over the place. So you definitely, kind of try to probe and pull that out from someone during a conversation, an interview. Um, Lots of different things you can Google. There's lots of different sets of questions and that people suggest, but definitely kind of understanding how they like to operate day to day and the things they're passionate about. Do they like to problem solve? Do they like to, different things like that are going to trigger you. Okay, what have you done to change things? How do you drive change? How do they? That's all going to lead into and help you understand if they really have that bite for curiosity.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I always like to think about the resume or the job description highlights the what very well.
Hmm.
What you've done, what, like, from a resume, what you've done, what you went to school, what you studied, all of these things, the certifications, a
Hmm.
job description, what we need, what we want you to have, all of those.
Yep.
The interview and the conversation is the form to uncover who and how. Who are you?
That's it. How?
How
That
do you
is the
work?
key right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not about like, okay, I optimized this process. Well, first of all,
How
like,
did you go
why?
about it?
What was,
Yeah.
and how did you go
Yeah.
about it? Like, those are the things we want to get into to understand people's process and
Yeah.
why and how they did things. And that
Yeah.
will shape, and tell you more of their comprehensive story than just like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, they optimized this process that resulted in this saving of
Right.
time. why? Like, what
Yeah.
was the purpose? What, just because they were
Right.
told to, or did they take it along themselves? Or like, so all of those, I agree with you. It's like
Yeah.
uncovering those are really important in that
Right.
discussion. Now, in that discussion and in
Hmm.
an interview, it can be very formal, and maybe
Hmm.
individuals don't feel as comfortable being vulnerable and telling that story. Do you
Yeah.
have any tricks in terms of how to disarm people and make them feel comfortable telling those types of stories in an interview?
Oh, I am pretty much, I try to be authentically me. I am often the first person to be like, "Oh man, sorry about this. I screwed up." Whatever, you know. So I actually I had a one interview not too long ago. I had had such a horrible day, but the guy we were interacting was, it was great, and I told him, "Wow, you have just put a smile on my your attitude, your energy, everything that you're exuding. It just, you can feel it." So I think just really, yes, it's a job interview, but we are humans and it's about human connection. And so being a person first, an employer second, get to know the person, let them know it's okay. Like, what's something you've learned recently? Hey, I just learned about this thing. I'm probably saying it wrong, da, da, da. But, letting them know it's okay to be vulnerable and not perfect, because you sure is, that's not going to be the case if they're hired. They're going to have to learn. There'll be a whole ramp up. So I think that's just the humanity, getting back to that, and just instead of checking the box, that I get the interview done, and hurry up and get through it. So
I like thinking about it as more of an authentic conversation, like you just said, and
hmm
just being a human first, right, and
yeah.
not an employer first, but kind of knowing that you're there to get to know the person, and it's not
hmm
about vetting if they're good enough. It's like, is this the right person for the right time
hmm
or not, right? Like, really
yeah.
just kind of getting to know people. So, Kim, this was fantastic. I love your energy. I love your passion, and
Thank
and
you.
your curiosity, right?
Yes.
Because I know
Yes.
in our conversation we've explored that quite a bit. Um, as we're kind of signing things off here, where can people connect and engage with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my LinkedIn, anyone can reach out to me on there and connect. I check that frequently. I don't know if I think my email's out there, on there, but if not, I'll update that. But it's just kimjacksonfl@gmail. So, definitely open to exploring and talking about this. I love talking about this kind of stuff. So, want to be there and glad to help.
Well, and a good thing came out of this is in the comments, Elena, and we're going to hold this. She's invited you to be a guest on their podcast. So now
You got me
we
another booking. So that's the
we've
trade-off for what I said to help you. You help me. We're good.
exactly. We've doubled your presence now online, so that's a positive outcome of today. Kim, thank you so much for joining me this week, and for everybody that tuned in. I really appreciate the support. Drop your comments in below in terms of anything that we might have missed, and I'm sure Kim will be happy to chime in and answer any questions you have. I had a fantastic week, and I look forward to seeing everybody next week. See you later.